Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, by introducing you to yourself. And I want to welcome you to the HEAL podcast. HEAL is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's a guide for healing your inner child based on my book, which I've turned into this amazing podcast. And I'm telling you, I've had some incredible guests over the past several weeks, and our guest tonight is going to be just as phenomenal. But I do have to take a moment and actually thank our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of HEAL, Help, Elevate, and Learn. You know, as I continue this journey of encouraging people to think about and consider their own inner child trauma, inner child wounds, and the healing that goes with those, it's been so fulfilling to me to just have a conversation with regular people about how they can start this process. And honestly, a lot of people have yet to even think about their current behavior being affected by something in the past. But when you really look at something that keeps showing up in your life, something that doesn't go away, something that's affecting your day-to-day life or your relationships, maybe your jobs, your goals, your business, the things that you're trying to accomplish in life. If you see something that just keep resurfacing, to me, it is one of those things where it's like it's an indication that it's based on something that was seeded or planted in your childhood. And that's why I wrote this book. That's why I wrote it, because I wanted to introduce you to the possibility of being wounded, and that wound is still showing up. Listen, I did a quick video, so I want to share that with you right now.
In a world where adulting can often seem overwhelming, there's a secret key to unlocking true serenity: healing the inner child. Within the pages of the acclaimed book, Help, Elevate, and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child, discover a journey, a transformation, or rebirth. This isn't just about reading, it's about embarking on a path to self-discovery and inner peace. Simultaneously, tune into the soothing waves of the Help, Elevate, and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child podcast. A sanctuary where candid conversations blend with expert insights, creating a harmonious symphony of healing. Each episode is a step closer to unburdening that youthful spirit within. Remember, it's never too late to offer compassion to that child within you, to rewrite your story with a happier, healthier narrative. Healing the Inner Child, the book, the podcast, the journey. Step into the world of self-healing and witness the transformation unfold.
So for those of you who haven't done so already, you can get your copy on Amazon. They're available today. And if you're in the Mobile area and if you want to get a copy, you know how to reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to meet you somewhere and actually sign it, autograph it for you, and even take a picture with you. Because I want to champion you for being brave enough to at least tackle or start the process of your own healing. You know, the reality is all of us are dealing with something. All of us have something that we can work on. But most of the time, people are so hesitant on doing that. They're so hesitant of really actually stepping into that journey, stepping into that role. But I know how needful it is, because without that level of healing, we live a life that is really unfulfilled and it's not satisfied, and it's not the best version of ourselves. But once we've taken the time to get to know who we are, to get to know what made us who we are, those things that have actually somewhat been hurdles for us. Once you've gotten a chance to get past those, we can truly live a free life, a life that is unhindered and uninhibited, that because we have healed. I was sharing with a friend of mine how it's almost like a volleyball player with a broken arm. Until you can actually show up, until you can heal from your broken arm, you're really not that good to the team. Yeah, in fact, you may be able to spike, but how is your balance going to be with your arm in a sling? Or can you imagine a football player with a broken leg? There's nothing you can do on the field. On the sideline, you can cheer his arm, but on the field, there's nothing you can do. We need to heal before we get back in the game and at life. And so that means that we have to take an evaluation of ourselves. We have to be willing to look at ourselves. And I had a chance yesterday to share with a group of incredible men uh, that are a part of this mobile business group, in fact, that I'm in. And I had a chance to share with them just, I called it the ABCs of healing. The ABCs of healing. The A was awareness. The B was believe. But the C was continual. Here's what I mean. For us to actually start the healing process, we have to be aware of things that are actually showing up in our lives today that came from something in our past. And a lot of times we don't want to look at that. A lot of times we want to block that out. A lot of times we just want to say, hey, that's who I am. But if we really step back and take a look at it, if we really are honest with ourselves, we can see how something that happened then is affecting us now. So being aware of our current state, our current situation, that really helps us to address those issues. But after we are aware of it, then the next thing we need to do is we need to believe that we can heal. We need to believe that we can. As somebody once said, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you're right. I'm going to say that again for those that are taking notes. If you believe you can, and if you believe you can't, you're right. So our success is based on our belief. If we believe that we can actually achieve and accomplish something, it may take us 10 times as long as it takes someone else. But if we believe that we can, we will continue to put in the work. And that's where the C comes in. Because once you believe, then you start the process of making the change. And again, I was sharing with the guys, and I started to make the ABC. I started to make the C, the word change, but I thought about it. I said, no, because it needs to be continual. Because if I say, okay, you're aware, you believe, and you change, that makes it seem like there's a light switch. You just go over there and just turn it, and everything is fixed and done. And the reality is, it's a process. But you have to start. You have to start. My coach, Dr. Ruben Westwood, oftentimes say the universe rewards those who take action different from the ones that don't. So we have to be willing to put in the work. We have to be willing to get off our do nothing and do something in order for us to achieve the level of success that we want. And it is possible. My encouragement to you is to just take a moment and just spend some time with yourself. I mean, really just spend some time with you. I was sharing with the fellas yesterday that my personal development journey started when I was in college, and how I had gone through a relationship and it went south, and I was trying to figure out, what happened. And I started asking questions, not of her, but I started asking questions of myself, because I wanted to find out why I took the position that I did. And that's where I started my personal development journey. There might be something in your life that you're curious about, something, again, that keeps haunting you, that keeps showing up, that won't go away, going from one job to the next, one relationship to the next, one business to the next, one ideal to the next, one goal to the next, and you're wondering why I keep getting the same results. It could be something that was seeded in your childhood. And I know a lot of people really they don't want to take that journey. They don't want to take that look. But if you're really going to be better, if you're going to be the best version of yourself, any team that's worth their salt, they have a game reel. They study themselves. They study and see what they've done right and what they've done wrong. But not only that, they also study their opponents. See what their opponents' strengths and weaknesses are. And see, I think that we can take that same approach even in our own lives. We can actually spend time evaluating ourselves, spend time understanding our own makeup. Because, like I tell people all the time, until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can. So, my question to you is this: when was the last time you actually took a deep dive, a deep look into yourself to actually see what went into make you who you are? And you know what? Because of that mindset fact that I have started this journey, and I'm telling you, it has been nothing but an amazing opportunity and an adventure for me to know more about myself and to learn how I can be a better version of myself, but also to help other people, which is why I wrote the book and why I started this podcast and why I have such amazing guests like the one I'm about to bring up right now, none other than my good friend, D.E. Speaks.
Hi.
Hey, D, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Oh my gosh, you were on a roll.
Hey,
I was
listen,
sitting here. I was taking some notes. I'm like, he didn't need me at all today. He got this.
you taking notes. I was supposed to be taking notes from you. Come on.
Man, you were and then you were doing the football analogy, and I work in the football world, so that really resonated with me. So that was very cool.
Well, cool, cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what it is you do.
All right. So, hey, everybody. So, I'm Diane Marion Eunice. People, my friends, they call me D or D Speaks. And I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have been practicing for 14 years now. It's 14 years now, 13 or 14. It's been so long. And so I specialize in working with relationships, how we're showing up in relationships. My favorite word is healing, because I believe that um, you know we don't heal. We won't heal if we refuse to deal. Like that's my motto. If we
Yes.
refuse to heal, we're just not dealing. And so something else and I'll get to what you were saying in a minute, because something you said resonated too. Like, I see how we're going to be tonight, but that's me. Like I said, I work with relationships. I've worked with over 300 couples. And this particular topic on healing the inner child is so, it resonates with me, because a lot of the clients and couples that I work with are dealing with stuff in their relationship from way back, right?
Yeah.
Things that
Yeah.
are unresolved, unhealed. And what they're doing, the arguments and just not getting along, and they're blaming it on other things, right?
Hmm.
So I tell people, if it's hysterical, then it's historical,
Okay.
right? So we're dealing with something that's really minor and we're getting hysterical about it. A lot of times it's historical. It's something
Right.
that we haven't resolved, something that is unhealed. And so these are some of the things how we're showing up in our relationships. And so that's the space I'm in. I do work with the NFL Players Association.
Okay.
So I'm a woman in sports, which I
Okay.
really enjoy. So
All right.
I get to do that. But therapy and just helping people connect the dots, that's my thing. That's my
Yeah.
jam. And so one thing that you said earlier about looking at yourself,
Yes.
really powerful, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of times the things that we despise in other people are things that we have refused to see within ourselves.
That part right
You
there.
know what I mean? We can
Yeah.
point all the time to our partners and their deficits, but when is the last time we asked somebody how are they experiencing us? Like when is the last time you looked at your partner and got a real, you know, authentic response that you're wanting? We don't typically ask our partners, well, how are you experiencing me?
Mm.
Because a lot of times we don't really want to know, right?
Right.
We really don't want to know. So being self-aware but going inward, it's in here,
Right.
and we start working on that. um,
Right.
that's where the secret sauce lies, not in anybody else, not your partner. It's you.
That's
And
mm.
so, but you just ask me what you need, because I will just be talking and keep this conversation, you
Well,
know.
listen, and that's what we're doing. We're having a conversation. And what you just said, it reminded me of when I worked for a particular retail company back in the mid 90s in Atlanta. And I worked in a warehouse. And I remember going in for my yearly evaluation, and my supervisor pulled out this sheet of paper that had all these things I had done over the past year. And I was like, okay, all right. So after that first evaluation, about
Hmm.
every 2 or 3 months, I would, instead of waiting, I would go to him. How am I doing? Is
Yes,
something I need to work on? Something I need to change, because I wanted to make sure that next time that list was less than half a page, because
yes,
I didn't want there to be a backlog of things that I had done wrong. So I took the initiative because I wanted to beat them to the punch, if you will. I wanted to make sure
yeah,
that I was making adjustments. I was staying on top of my game, and I was doing it again for my own satisfaction.
yeah. But if you were
So
still in that space of not being healed, then that inner child would have come out, right? Oh, you think, oh, so we would not hold ourselves accountable. It would be the supervisor's fault, or it
right,
would be, well, I'm late getting to work or whatever because of traffic. What does it have to do with, what I'm saying? So when
yeah,
we're unhealed and we're in that, you know, uh, that especially that inner child, it will show up and
mm,
so quickly, because that
yep,
that what you did was the adult way to handle that, right? But if
right,
somebody else could have been like, well, you didn't say anything when so and so did it, or
right,
you let so and so have a pass. Oh, it's always me. I'm always the problem, right?
right,
And that could
right,
be something driven from, earlier days when,
right,
depending on the environment that you grew up in, where you weren't allowed to, where you didn't, where you may have been blamed for quite a few things, or you may have been neglected in certain areas. So that inner child, no matter how old we get, we carry that our younger selves with us,
yes,
right?
yes,
So we have to
yes.
learn how to keep that in check, for
That's
sure.
true. That's true. That's true. Well, my first question to you is this: in your professional opinion, how important is inner child healing?
Um, my professional opinion, it's very important, and
Okay.
simply for the reasons that we just spoke about, because it it will show up.
Yep.
It will show up when you least expect it. There's some folks that are walking around who are, that part of themselves or some of their earlier experiences, they don't acknowledge those. Well, I'm an adult now,
Right.
so what happened to me happened. It doesn't impact me. Yet you go from relationship to relationship to relationship so that you don't have to change. Or if you're with someone and they decide they want to go out with their friends and not spend time with you, that abandonment issues start coming up, depending on what happened in your earlier childhood. You
Right.
know, you won't speak up, in important conversations, or in conflict, you will just mask and hold in. those
Mm-hmm.
feelings because maybe as a child you weren't allowed to speak. So I say there's a lot of emotionally constipated people that are walking around.
Ooh, not that, not constipated, not emotionally constipated.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
okay,
is. There's a lot of people who just, as adults
right,
don't have the emotional maturity to speak up.
right.
So it just shows up in so many ways that we can't sweep it under the rug anymore. You know,
That is.
we
Ooh, that
we
is.
can't do that anymore. It's like we want to excuse or pretend that part of our existence did not happen. And it's really funny. And I think social media is such a great example
Mm,
of that because we see people on there, oh, I'm living my best life. I'm living my best life. And then
right.
my question is, are you living your best life or are you living your best lie?
Ooh, okay,
Because we
okay,
want to give people the best and the handsome or the pretty or the trips or the food or
right.
the clothes or the cars. We want to give people that of us,
Uh-huh.
but it makes you just kind of pause and wonder, is there anything beyond that? Is that
Yeah,
a mask for something else? And I tell people we can put a suit on it, we can Gucci it, Louis it, Prada it, we can
right,
Stacy Adam it, eyebrows, eyelashes, whatever you want to do, we can put
right,
all that stuff on. But at the end of the day, when you come back home
right.
and you start taking all of that stuff off,
Mm,
then what do you have?
yeah.
It's just you, right? And one thing about that mirror is a that mirror is a mofo.
It
It
is.
really is. Because one thing it's not going to do is lie to you.
Mm,
But sometimes we
that-
don't want to look in the mirror because that reflection is too painful,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And doing the presentation I gave yesterday, I
Which was
really talked.
excellent, by the way. Is that what
Oh,
I saw? I watched it. You were speaking to some men, and is that
yes,
the one?
yes.
That was so good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I
I hope you
appreciate
do
that.
more of that.
And I mean, really, that is my passion. And especially in the area of men's mental health, because
Mhm.
I believe that we're terribly underserved. And it's not because there aren't resources, but it's because it's not normalized. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast to, again, start the conversation, not end it, but to start the conversation, to make it okay to talk about our mental health and the challenge. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because I believe that it will actually help just raise people's awareness
Mhm.
of those issues,
Yeah.
that there was a disconnect. And I know, even as I shared with the guys yesterday about how, my slogan is, I'm Ciccone Prince of CicconePrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. When I
Mhm.
started off doing that, my thing was to introduce you to the adult version of yourself. But what I quickly realized is that so many people had a problem stepping into who they were because of the inner child portion of them that was holding them back, their own belief systems that was seeded or rooted in something that came from their childhood. And so even though I'm still in the personal development arena, I wanted to take it one step further and just say, hey, there's somebody that you may have forgotten about, and that is your inner child. And like you said, we carry that in us. I don't care how old we are. My thing is this: how can we make peace with that inner child instead of pacifying it, or instead of taking it and tying it up and throwing it in the basement? Because
Mhm.
what happens is it comes out. And I even talk about this in my book, because I believe, let me see, I think it was chapter 6. It said the danger of unprocessed emotions.
Mm.
The subtitle is the slap heard round the world. And of course, I'm making reference to Will Smith and Chris
Yeah,
Rock at
yeah.
the Oscars. You know, there when we don't deal with those inner child traumas and inner child wounds, again, like you said, they show up at the most inopportune times, and in that particular case, cost him billions of
He
dollars.
did.
If I mean, if he would have just taken a moment and say, okay, all right. If he would have talked to Lil Will and said, okay, let's just meet him backstage. If you got to do that, do it away from the cameras. Why do it on the world stage and then potentially just ruin, in fact, the rest of your career? But when we don't have a rein on our emotions, they can cause a lot of damage. And even before I wrote this book, I would tell people all the time, never let your emotions drive. They're not covered on your insurance.
Now you know I have to. Where's my
Never let
pen?
never
I'm
let your
not going to
emotions
play with you today. Where's my pen?
never
You have
let
to
your
say that
emotions
again.
drive. Never let your emotions drive because they're not covered on your insurance. And it's like handing the keys to your car to a 10-year-old.
Mhm.
But then you have to be responsible for the damage they do. And so to me, that's why that whole conversation of, dealing with our inner child, helping to get our emotions under control so that they don't, again, ruin and wreck our relationships, our
Mhm.
business, our diets, our goals, our plans, our party, our organization, wherever we are. If we never take the time to get our emotions in check, they will show up at the most inopportune times.
Every
So,
single time.
yeah.
Mm.
So that brings me to my next question, which is, in your professional opinion, when should someone start inner child work?
You should start with doing that inner child work. Well, first, let me just say this. There's this book called The Body Keeps the Score.
I
You know,
remember hearing that. I haven't read it yet, but I remember hearing it.
yeah. So it's by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk or something like that. But
Uh-huh.
it really just talks about um, how trauma really is in here, right?
Right,
And I'll just give
right.
an example because I work a lot with trauma, and I've worked with people who were uh, molested as children um, by family members or whoever. And I just remember some years ago working with a young lady, and it shows up because she never got treatment for it, right? Because it was looked at like, well, this is a family thing.
Right,
And we
right,
will just, so she never got treated. She never got heard. The family just kind of, kept the relative away from her. But then sometimes they would still show up at, events. So she
right,
was re-traumatized, but never did anything with it. Right.
right,
Because families, some cultures don't believe that therapy is, they believe in keeping family issues in the home, keeping
right.
secrets. But we have to remember that secrets keep us sick.
Ooh, say that again.
Yeah,
Secret keep us sick.
secrets keep
Now
us sick.
you talking about you ain't mess with me. I ain't play. I'm writing that one down.
It
Secrets keep us sick.
Secrets
Okay.
keep us sick. And so what happens in that vein is when she got older, and one thing about trauma, when it's unresolved and unhealed, it can show up physically. There's
Mm,
physical ramifications.
right,
But
right,
typically, when you think of trauma, some folks will go straight to the psychological parts of trauma,
right, right.
right? But you still have adults who have gone through horrible, horrific things like child abuse, whether sexual or physical, that your body is the same body, right? We grow up,
Hmm.
but we still have the same brain. We still have the same brain. Like that
Right,
brain
right.
is the one we came into the world with. It's just a little more logical now, but
Yeah.
we still have the same brain. We still have the same emotional makeup.
Right.
So one thing about with this particular person is, intimacy was a problem in the relationship because of the trauma.
Right.
And one thing about it, if you're getting in relationships, a lot of times we don't tell we have that representative, right?
Right.
That's what we show first. But if we have things that have impacted us, especially as a child, in terms of any type of traumatic event, especially when it comes to physical or sexual or mental abuse, and
Right.
we happen to start dating before healing,
Mm.
then there's some things, if you see the relationship getting a little serious, we need to have a conversation.
Right.
Because
Right.
if your partner doesn't know anything about your earlier experiences, you're going to be easily triggered over and over by some things. It can be a smell, it can be words, it can
Right.
be a place, it can
Yep.
be something on television. You land on the couch watching a movie together and you see something, it triggers you. They don't have a clue what's happening, right?
Right.
So we have to have those conversations with those that we love, especially if we know we're going to have a long-term relationship with them. So one thing I ask people to do when they have experienced those types of trauma or any type of trauma, I have them write 3 letters. I
Okay.
have them write a letter to the person that hurt them.
Mm. Okay.
And I mean a detailed letter to that person who hurt them, how it felt, why, how it's impacted them, how it impacted them growing up, how some of the difficulties it's caused, just a real, true heart letter to that person.
Okay.
Some say they want to give it to the person. I've had some read it to the person. I've had some who have written it, read it to me, and then we've just torn it up in session. The second letter, I asked them to write to the inner child
Mm.
because I want the inner child to know, look at me now.
Yeah.
I'm in therapy. We
Right.
have a job. Look, we overcame a lot of things, right? We
Right.
were victims, and now look at us. We're on the road to victory.
Right.
So we
Right.
write to that little person so they can see how far you've come at the
Right.
beginning of therapy. Then I have a person write a letter to themselves. We are the hardest, we're the ones that it's hardest to forgive, right? Because for some children, they were too young to stop the event. They were too young to, even if they saw it happening to a parent, they couldn't do anything because they were so
Right.
little. And people carry that around with them, and they call it something else, like I'm weak or I'm pathetic,
Right.
and this is something that may have happened 20 years ago.
Right.
So we do a forgiveness letter to ourselves.
Mm.
And then we come back and we write again to that inner person as we get through towards the end of therapy, so that little child can know, man, we're on our way, right? This is what
Right.
I've learned. This
Right.
is what I am. You'll be so proud of me now. Look at
Mm.
us. We're doing this thing, right?
Yeah.
And then I have them write one more letter to themselves
Right.
about, hey, so people, you can do you can work on your inner child yourself because there's a lot of resources out here. But
Right.
one of my biggest suggestions is you don't have to do it alone.
That's true.
Like we're not on an island. Like, go find a therapist. Go
Yes.
through 5 or 6 therapists until you find the one that resonates with you, who
That's
wants to hear your story and
right.
wants to help you restory your story.
Ooh, see, look at you. Restory your story.
We can
Okay.
do it. We can do it. I have
Okay.
people who ask me, they had a really difficult childhood and the family, so they moved all the way across to a whole different state.
Right.
And my thing is, well, are you happy? Because you can go across to another state, across another town or whatever, but the one thing that's going with you is you.
That, yes.
So you can move, and then it's like, well, I don't want them coming over. I don't want to have anything to do. And they call all the time, and I'm like, well, do you answer the phone? They're like, well, yeah, because it's my so and so. So sometimes people need permission to set boundaries. You don't
Yeah.
always have to answer the phone
That's,
to toxic people who are in your life, right? And one of the
yeah.
hardest things for people that I found is to really be honest about the things that maybe their parents put them through. It's very interesting how protective they still are. And it's like, well, I can't not talk to my mom. I said, well, have you and your mom ever talked about what happened when you were younger? No, we just go about life, like it is, you know. But here you are with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that part.
Here with me, right? And so you're not good. You're not okay. Your parents, they failed you. And it's okay to say that out loud. But
Yeah.
it's something about that loyalty. And I get it. I get it.
Right.
But your parents know that they did not parent you well. They
Mhm.
know the things that went on. But when I bring them into the room, sometimes the parents will be like, well, I just don't remember doing that to you or saying that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we may not get the apology that we're looking for. And we have to be okay with that. We,
Yeah.
our parents or whoever, our caregivers or whoever the adults in our lives who failed us as children, we may not get that. They may say that never happened, you making it up,
Yeah.
whatever the situation is. So you may have to be okay with not getting that closure from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Several things you mentioned actually brought back to my memory. One, I spoke a couple of years ago at a Focus Women's Conference here in Mobile, Alabama, and I talked about basically what your mindset is. And at the end of my session, I had had all of the women there do this exercise, which I really didn't know was a catalyst for what you just talked about. But I had them to first secure their valuables because I said that hey, everybody isn't saved.
Yeah.
But I had them to close their eyes and put their hand over their heart. And I had them to actually speak to the little girl that was in them. And I had them, to actually thank her for the strength that she had to go through whatever they went through in order to survive and to be here today. And I also had them to help, I helped them to understand that that little girl was proud of the woman that they became. They were proud of the fact that they didn't allow what happened to them to actually keep them in that state. In fact, but they moved on and moved past it. And afterwards, so many women came up to me and just, and hey, thank me for the other information too, but that particular exercise, it really
Mm.
struck a chord with them, because they had never really even considered that little girl that was still in them, the one, again, that survived whatever they went through, whether it was neglect, abuse, mental, emotional,
Mhm.
physical, even sexual. But talking to that little girl, acknowledging her strength and her willingness not to give up, it really it, it helped them to walk out there with their head held high and to know that that little girl was proud of them. And then even in my book, I talk about journaling, and I
Yes.
know I know a lot of times, especially for men, in fact, we don't want to have like a diary or have a journal, but I encourage, even in my book, okay, just write it down. Like, write your challenge, write what happened to you, read it. I say, write it, read it, and release it. Write it, read it, and then take it to your barbecue pit, take it to your fire pit,
Mhm.
and just burn it. You know, and that can be a process to help you start healing because you've gotten it out, you've
Yeah.
read it out, and now you've released it, you let it go.
Whew.
Yeah, so
That's powerful.
yes, yes. Well,
That's really deep.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen, I know that we normally do about a 30-minute show and we're already 42 minutes into it, but this has been an amazing conversation. And I want to thank you again. And I haven't said this to the other therapists, but I want to say it to you and to all of those who are listening. For those people who put themselves in a position to deal with other people's junk and mess and trauma, thank you. Because I can just imagine the burden that you have listening to and reliving other people's lives and situations and things that they went through. And it takes a special person to do that. So I want to honor you for taking on this profession
Well,
and
thank
actually
you.
doing it from your heart, because it's needed. It's not just enough for us to get free
Yeah.
if we're not helping other people. And I want to applaud you for what it is you do and for every person that takes up that role, whether they are a professional or if they're just a friend who is willing to listen and offer some good, solid advice. It takes a special person to do that. So I want to thank you for doing that, and especially as your profession and your career.
Well, I'm just your mirror,
Okay.
right? You're doing the same work. You're
Yep.
doing this is a heart-centered work. And,
Yes.
you're applauding us, but I'm applauding you because
Thank
you took this on. And some people deal with a lot of things, but very few are dealing with the inner child, right? So you've
you. Yeah.
taken on a big task and it's unbelievable. So I applaud you for having the courage to create this space, this safe space for people to talk and get the information they need. And you had asked me one question, so I was going to ask you if there's somewhere that I can type it in. You asked, when should a person start doing the inner child work? And we didn't get to that part, but if I could type it in somewhere or at least share it.
Well, I mean, you can share it now.
Oh, well, I'm gonna be really quick because I know we're out of time. But
Okay.
one of the things, there's a few. So it's time to do inner work when you have a high reactivity or emotionality to things that with other people it wouldn't be so they'll be looking at you like, why are you getting upset about something to them that seems small, but because there's something that it triggered with
Right.
you.
Right.
Another one is when you have destructive coping mechanisms, when you're
Mm.
drinking or using substances or sex to soothe you, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're jumping from relationship to relationship because, first of all, maybe there's fear of them leaving you, so you would want to leave them first. Or number
Right.
two, for fear that they're going to require you to change. And in order
Mm.
to change, you have to do the work. And
Definitely.
some of us are afraid to go inward because we're afraid of all the decay from our earlier years. It's still there,
Yeah.
right? So it's
That's true.
hard. It takes courage to go inside and say, man, they hurt me. They left me. They didn't treat me well, right? So
Right.
there's some things that are going on. And number three, when we have our own poor emotional or mental health. So if you're walking around and you are struggling with depression, anxiety is another one where we in relationships sometimes we get anxious about, are they going to leave me, or are they going to If you're constantly in a state of being anxious about your relationship that you're in or what they're going to do, you're thinking about things that haven't even happened yet. You don't even have evidence that this person is going to do what you're imagining things.
Right.
Sometimes it's not even what's in front of you, it's the story you've made up in your mind about that event, right? And then a
Right.
lot of things also is attachment, and that's a whole different show. You might have to do that with somebody. But
Well,
these
we would definitely have you back.
attachment issues are huge, and that's also some signals that something is going on with me. Some of the patterns in relationships, we're not speaking up, we're not talking, we're holding things in, because if we talk or we say the wrong thing, they may leave us, right? There's people in relationships that are going through so much individually that it's impacting the entire unit. But when when you go from a me to a we, that's a partnership, right? So you
Yeah.
have to have those hard conversations about what you experience, because number one, it's letting that person in, and vulnerability is the foundation of any relationship. But number two, let people know these things up front too, because you never want to take people's choices away. Somebody may not be able to deal with what you have going on or what you've experienced. Sometimes they may be like, you got too much baggage, right? I can't. And that's
Right.
okay. I would be happy for them to say that up front rather than get in the relationship and then they leave. And then you have that feeling of worthlessness and abandonment again. So we got to be really honest about what
Right.
are some of the things that we've gone through that we know can impact this current relationship. So
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Okay. Well, listen. We're definitely going to have you back. I am again so appreciative and so grateful for having you. And before we get out of here, I do have to make sure that I actually hit our sponsor again, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHill. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHill or choose Saconi Prince Hill during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Well, again, DE Speaks, I want to thank you for being on our show today. And I can't tell you how excited I am to have you back at a later date so we can talk a little more, because I know that you have a wealth of information that I believe that can actually help our audience. It's really what I want to do, because that's what the book is: help, elevate, and learn. So that's what HEAL stands for.
Yes.
And I want to thank all those who tuned in and those who are watching via Facebook and also YouTube, and even the ones that are watching the replay. And if you haven't done so already, you can go to SaconiPrince.com/heal, and you can listen to this episode and previous episodes that I will have put up there. I'll put it up over the weekend. But again, DE Speaks, I want to thank you again for just being on our show. And I truly appreciate you. And again, in fact, the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. All right, we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye, everyone.